Alright, hey guys, this is Eric with Oto AV, here to tell you about the mixer at our Lost Cowboy Church. This is a Behringer X32. Basically, similar to your old board, you have everybody in here is named. This is number one is Karen, Bud, Bobby, and so forth. And then you have your computer audio channels right here in 9 and 10. So let's go over one channel here. The first channel, we'll select Karen. We'll select Karen here. And I don't know if you can see, but all the information about Karen's channel will be up here. So instead of having an individual strip of knobs and stuff, you have one section of knobs that applies to whichever channel you have selected. So as you can see here, the settings on where these knobs are located change versus depending on which channel I have selected. So this is your gains section, which is the maximum amount of power that you have to that. You have your 48 volts if you have a condenser mic. You have phase, which you shouldn't need to use. And then you have the low cut filter, which we have a little bit of that on hers just to roll off the light since it is a vocal mic. Here you have a gate and a compressor setting that you can choose. And if I select the view button on those, it brings up those on the fader so you can see what those are doing, how much input would be coming in, and I can set the threshold level for that gate. What a gate does is if noise is below a certain level, then it basically mutes it all until it passes a certain level and then lets it pass. Or a compressor is similar. If it gets above a certain level, it starts squashing things down so the dynamics are more even. So that would be useful if you have someone, say, who sings softly and then sings loudly later on, and you want to get those two closer together. That's where that's useful at. This next section I have is my equalizer, and I have a representation of all those items on here: the gate, EQ, and compression dynamics. But I can also hit view and view exactly really what I'm doing with my EQ. This turns the equalizer off. This brings it in. This is the gain for each channel. So I have a high mid, a low mid, and a low. Now my frequencies, they're all labeled. 1 is the low, 2 is the low mid, and 3 is the high mid, 4 is the high. So I can select, like number 4 is the high, and I can choose to cut that signal, and I can move that down. And then, as you'll see, this has created a bell curve on there, and I can either tighten that up to be really tight so it's not affecting as many frequencies around it, or really widen it out so it's affecting more frequencies around it. So that's in a nutshell that. And I can do the same thing with my low mid. I can cut or boost by raising it or lowering that signal, and it's really great to see a representation of what you have going on there. Now I'm going to select the mic that I'm speaking on real quickly, and you'll see the audio signals that are coming in as I'm speaking through this microphone. You see a graph of those coming in, so you can see what's going on and how you are affecting some of the signal with the EQ that you are doing. That's really basically it. Now let me go back to the home section of this. This representation over here, you see the bus sends, and 1 and 2 are your monitor feeds, and you can kind of see what level I'm sending to those. And this is what those are. So if I'm on 1 through 4, 1 and 2, this is my monitor level. So I could turn it up in the monitor here, or down in monitor 1, or up in monitor, and down. And then that's what those feeds are. Now I can go to view that as well and see a more detailed representation of those. It's really not that useful though. that's really it. This is your main bus, which is showing me, hey, I'm sending signal out to the left and right, which is what I wanted to be doing. So that's it for that. Now back to one of your channels. You have your select button. This selects whichever channel I want to be working with. My solo button, if I have that on, I'm listening to whatever is soloed in my headphone mix. So if I have headphones plugged in that are on the side of the board, I can solo and listen to just this microphone, or I can solo a few different things and listen to those 3 things in the microphone, however many I want. Now, if I have several things soloed, I can clear solo and it'll just get rid of all of those so that in my headphones I'm listening to the main mix. That's really it. Then I have my strip here where I have labeled all of these things. So I can set those up. If I go to setup and let's see, right here, if I go to setup and roll over to where it says Scribble Strip, that's what they call this area where you can change the colors and label and names and stuff. So I can select from here which channel I want to work with, channel number 1, channel number 9, whatever that channel is. I can up and down change the color of that channel. So right now I'm on channel 10, which is right here, and it's currently yellow, but I can make that be purple. And it's changing channel 9 and 10 because I have them linked. So it's changing both of those. So what you do to one will change the others. If I push on this button, it inverts that and gives it a little bit different look. So yeah, you can do that. I can choose an icon for that. In this case, I've chosen a 1/4 inch input left and right, since this is what's coming from the computer. So I have that input left and right. And then I can name it right here. If over here is name, and I can click on that, and they have some suggestion names that you can select from or choose your own name by scrolling through the letter format and hitting the button to select the letter. There's a backspace button. Each one of these buttons changes and tells you what it does. This is exit, this is set, this is backspace, this is select. This is invert these colors as I select through those. So anyway, that's that. Then the next thing I have on the channel would be the mute button, and then your up and down fader that you would normally use, just like on an analog console. That's it. Now, all of those channels are really operate the same, and they're labeled for your instruments. The next section over here is my bus section, which is where I'm running feeds for monitor 1, monitor 2, the camera recording, the hall speakers, and the sub. And I'm going to show you how to get to those. I showed you one way that I can get to those, to what's going to those up here. But the easiest way to probably do it is say, hey, I want to select monitor 1. And so I'm going to select it right there. That's monitor 1. And then I'm going to go over to, I want to say, hey, I want more of one of my channels. Well, how do I get more of, say, Karen or the CD or any of these into monitor 1? Well, what I'm going to do, a real easy way to do that, I'm going to hit this button right here that's called Sends on Faders. Now, Sends on Faders is going to flip that. And essentially, if I don't have this on, what I'm sending here, this is what's going to my main feed, like you would expect with a normal thing. But if I hit Sends on Fader, that does the same thing. That turns all of these are now controlling what goes to monitor 1. Now, if I selected monitor 2, they all go to monitor 2, and you'll see as I switch those that the faders are changing because of what mix I am sending to monitor 1 and monitor 2. So you'll see those right there, and then I can select here what I am sending to my camera, what I am sending to the hallway, and even what I am sending to the subwoofers right here. So I can select the amount of certain things to send to the subwoofers. We're not really sending any of the vocals to the subwoofers, just some of the instruments and the CD channel coming from the computer. So that's really an easy way to do that. That's very simple. Now, when I'm done with that, I want to go back to mixing for my main house feed. So I just turn Sends on Fader off, and there we are. I am controlling now what's going to my left and right in my main feed here. So now let's go to, let's say somebody came in and played with this, they messed with this, they turned knobs, they did stuff, they didn't know what they were doing, they weren't supposed to be here. Well, now what do I do? With the old analog console, you had to try to figure it out. But with this one, we've got it all saved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to this section right here that says Scenes, and I'm going to hit View because that's going to bring up my scene profile up on my screen. So I hit View, and it's going to take me to the home of View, and I'm going to tab over one. So I have these navigation buttons left and right and up and down, and I'm going to tab over to Scenes. And again, these buttons assign to whatever is on here. So I see the scenes that we have saved, the Sunday and Preacher. So I am going to roll down here, and I want Sunday, and then I'm going to push that down because it says load, and I want to load my Sunday scene. It's going to ask me, is that what you really wanted to do? No or yes. So I'm going to scroll over to hit yes, and as you see, I moved all of my faders and brought all my settings back to my normal setting. Now I could do the same thing with the Preacher one, or I can create a new one by setting everything as I would wish, and then hitting save. It will ask me to name it, and then save it here. I'm not going to do that at this moment, so I'm going to just hit cancel. And those are the ones that we did. Now when I'm done with that, I can just hit View and go back to the view that I was working with, which we were looking at the sub. Now I'm going to go back to, say, Sandra's mic, and I can see that. That is a really simple thing. The other deal is my effects. So I can go to my effects, and I can see what units I'm working with. I have different effects units. If I wanted effects, say, on this vocal mic that I'm working with, well, those also send to a fader, but they're on a different page. So as I see here, I have my group, my buses, and this is where you guys are normally going to operate, bus 1 through 8. Bus 9 through 16 is a different page on this same set here. So if I flip to that, I'm going to see that I have these, and I have my effects right up to 13, 14, 15, 16. So if I wanted to, just as the same way I would do with my monitor, I want to send some of the mic to the effect. I go to Sends on Fader, and I'm going to select my effects unit right here, and I Sends on Fader, and as you see right now, nothing from my channels is going to my effect number 13. So I'm going to send some of this mic, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you hear how much of that effect is on there. So I would change that, and I can send some of this one, some of this one. I could lower the amount of that effect going to that. So however much you want to use, but that's where it is. I go back to your monitor feed, you go there, and it's not showing you that, but that's what it is. And if I go off the Sends on Fader, I'm back to mixing with my house, and I can turn this mic up or down, but now I have that effect on there. So I don't actually want that. I'm going to go back to this section here and turn that off. And so here's you hear, I don't have that on anymore. So the same thing, I have the other effect. If I wanted the effect that's in channel 15, I send that to there, and it has a really delay, which is not what I wanted to do either. So you can play with those and see what ones that are on there. This is a chorus. It has a different effect, and you can play with the settings of all of these effects up on your screen here with these buttons. That's really simple how to do the effects. Don't go crazy, be careful with those, because it can get out of whack and sound really weird. So I'm going to go back to mixing my monitors and all of that feed, and that's pretty much it for this board. So it's really not that hard. You can put a USB in here and record to that USB. You can connect a talkback mic here or a lamp here. These buttons here are assignable, like we can assign those to certain things if we wanted to mess with. Right now they're really kind of set on some of our effects, so we can play with those there too. So if you guys have any other questions, we're going to leave you with the manual, and you can always give us a call at any time. Thanks.